Hello YouTube and places beyond. This is Rashoni, the Rock and Roll Dragon, coming to you with a video about performing in costume or fursuit or whatever you have. I've had a lot of people interested in how basically I do what I've been doing over the last couple years, and I thought I would share my experience with you guys just in case you guys might be interested in doing something similar. It's not as easy as it looks. So basically the first half of this video, I'm just gonna go over basically what I do and what has worked for me over the last couple years. And basically the second half of this video is just going to be a bunch of kind of general tips for stuff that you might like to do on stage or at a convention or whatever you want in costume. Alright, so naturally, the first thing about playing guitar, of course, is that once you put something on your hands, it gets a lot harder to even feel where your fingers are on the fretboard, not to mention where the heck the strings are when you're strumming. So, that was one of my biggest hurdles as far as playing the guitar in costume, was figuring out what the hell to do with these things. So I came up with a couple solutions that worked for me. Maybe they'll work for you. Either way, it's been a big learning process, so if you're not willing to put in the time to feel out what works, it's gonna kind of end up a hot mess. Anyway, so let's start off. I started accumulating different kinds of thumb picks, which if you've ever been to any sort of guitar shop or music store, they usually have these little tiny picks for sale that, you know, all their little rings they hook over your thumb. You definitely want to try different sizes, different strengths of pick and stuff like that to see which ones might work for your playing style. The thing about thumb picks though is that they work great if you're just doing a nice strum here and there, playing chords, you know, just you know, kind of steady down picking, stuff like that. But if you do a lot of alt picking, like up and down, you quickly see how it starts to slip off, especially if you've got bulky gloves. So next I tried these orbit picks, which basically have this little rubber ring on them, so you slip them on your finger, and unless someone literally comes up and tries to rip them out of your hand, they're not going anywhere. So, you know, this slips out of your hand, oh, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. I can still play. I just found that they're a little bit cumbersome because I choke up on my pick a lot, so it doesn't leave a lot of room to kind of do what I want to do. Anyway, long story short, I found that trying to hold a pick in a gloved hand is probably the worst option you can go with. So instead, I decided to pick up a pair of relatively cheap costume gloves, basically cut holes in the thumb and the finger so that it's literally my bare finger gripping the pick. I found that I have a lot more expression, a lot more control, and I'm not worried about fabric or anything getting in the way of hitting the strings like I did with the thumb picks. As far as the actual fretting of the guitar, that's where things got pretty tricky. At first I tried a pair of gloves that I had sewn that the fingers could slip through and I could get my bare hand on the guitar, which in a best case scenario would work great. But the problem is you have the folds of your glove flopping around and you got these fingers that aren't even attached to your hand, just like noodles. And it looked kind of messy. So I went with a Canadian company called originalguitarfingers.com, or at least that's what their website says, and found these really nifty guitar gloves. They also have little slip-on finger sleeves, basically. I decided to go with the glove because that way I could use it for different types of costume purposes. And as you can see, it's just a simple glove. It's literally lacking a thumb. The problem being that the guitar glove website is very limited in colors, and the other downside is that they wear and tear. I'm actually on my second pair right now that I've bought, because last year when I got them for the first time, after regular use you literally start shredding through the tips of the fingers. But after a year worth of convention and guitar playing, that's gonna happen anyway. I think they're roughly about like 12 or 14 bucks a pop. A little expensive if you're not just gonna make some cheap like spandex gloves in your spare time, but I think it's worth the convenience. And as far as playing the guitar with the actual glove on, I was surprised there wasn't really that much difference. It all just came to how much I was willing to adjust the glove so that the seam wasn't bouncing on the tip of my finger, and making sure that I was aware of where my hand was at all times. It really came down to a lot of muscle memory, but other than that, you can still actually feel when your finger slides over a fret, so that helps a lot, especially when you get the thinnest guitar glove they offer. Alright, so onto vocals. The thing about vocals is I've come across a lot of fursuiters that try to do either karaoke or perform on stage, and the problem is that a lot of fursuits aren't designed with being able to be heard in mind. So you see a lot of performers either like try to swallow the microphone just so they can be heard, or they're really muffled just when you're trying to talk to them face to face. I think it was basically a fluke accident that my fursuit just so happened to have good vocalization properties. I think it had a lot to do with having a wide open mouth. A moving jaw definitely helps. Of course, if you have a static fursuit face, it's going to be a heck of a lot more constricting. You're going to have a lot of fabric that your voice is going to try to project through. So if you can design with that in mind, either if you're building your fursuit yourself or if you're commissioning someone, professional makers, at least the ones that do specialize in the moving jaw, you're probably going to have better luck with those, but I can't speak for them, of course. So as far as actually singing at the convention goes, I usually go to the staff or the audio team that's running the event, and I'll request a wireless headset mic. Now, these things are so expensive, not to mention the actual wireless system they run on. I don't actually own one, so I can't recommend any ones that might work for you guys. All I know is that the ones the audio team has been supplying me have been awesome. They've been working excellent, and it just depends on who you're working with. Also, having a nice open face on my fursuit allows for the wireless mic to sit in underneath my whole wearable hood, so it gives a lot of adjustability. If you have a very closely fit fursuit head, again, it's going to be difficult to fit a microphone in there. Now, the whole reason why I opt for the wireless mic is just because it's taking out that one variable of searching for where the heck the mic is in front of your face. Of course, without having any vision from here on down, you can see how it gets a little bit difficult to find out where the heck a microphone is, let alone where the heck the fretboard is in my hand. A lot of that was just eliminating a problem that, you know, I thought I should avoid. However, I will say I do like the aesthetic of actually having a microphone in front of me to sing into, but who knows if I'll be able to manage that kind of thing in the future. And speaking of vision issues in fursuit or costume or whatever you might have, I know from the get-go I made visibility a big priority in my eyes, because I already actually have pretty bad vision. Outside of suit, I usually have to wear glasses. Meanwhile, I wear contacts under this anyway. But even despite my design of wanting to have a better field of view, a lot of what happens while I'm playing guitar is a lot of muscle memory. You'll actually notice that when I'm playing a song that I really know by heart, I'm not even barely looking at the guitar at all. Usually if I'm playing chords or simple stuff like that, I'm not even looking, and I'm just playing by muscle memory and double checking my placement if I have to move my hand. Alright, so just in case you guys were interested as well, this is the little mini amplifier that I've been carrying around at conventions lately. It is a Roland Micro Cube GX version. As you can see, I've repurposed this amplifier a little bit to hold this little handy dandy business card box on top, which is actually a repurposed plastic pack of gum. So far, I've been really liking this amplifier. It definitely gets the job done. It's more than loud enough for carrying around at a convention, which, by the way, don't piss off security while you're using it. As you can see, it's got an auxiliary input on top that can take an MP3 player or you can plug your phone into. It runs on 6 AA's in the back here, and for the strap that I have that I wear this around conventions with, I actually have strap locks to be able to take this on and off without having to put it all the way over my head and such like that. All in all, I actually really like this amp, despite what I might have said on Twitter a while back.
What the hell, Roland?
The only downside is that the tones for like heavy distortion and stuff like that are, you know, on the low end. I mean, it's a tiny amp. It's not gonna have your big, huge band sound. It is fairly lightweight, but after carrying this thing around for an hour, your shoulder is gonna hurt. Trust me. That being said, I'd recommend it. It's about $100, and I got mine at a local dealer that was a little bit cheaper than you might find online. So, yeah. Rock and Roll Dragon approved. And as a little added bonus, as far as when it comes to maybe playing the drums in costume, the less bulky your hands or your paws are, the better. And surprisingly, a little hockey tape goes a long way for keeping your sticks in one place without risking throwing them at someone. Alright, so that's basically how I've been doing it over the past couple of years, and if you guys want to know more, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. So now comes to the part of the video where I give a couple overall tips, not necessarily involving just specifically guitar or music, but more performance in general while in any sort of costume or fursuit. Tip number 1, know your limits. If your fursuit gives you some sort of handicap, learn to compensate for it. If it's like you can't see that well, or you can't hear that well, or you can't even feel what's around you that well, learn the ins and outs of your costume. The more familiar you are with actually working in it, the better. If you have equipment that might be hanging off of you, or something that you might be using in front of you, learn your field of vision, learn where it is on your body. You don't want to be searching for cables and turning dials and fumbling with yourself while you're trying to perform. It's just going to look bad. And for God's sake, recognize when you're overheating or dehydrated and plan for it. Have a bottle of water, for Christ's sake. Tip number 2, venue awareness. If what you're doing involves a certain amount of space or a stage, get up on there ahead of time. See if you can talk to whoever's running it, if there's enough time for you to rehearse. Get a feel for how long the stage is. Learn if there's going to be any equipment in your way, like mic stands or amplifiers or any other equipment might be standing around the boundaries. Another big thing, stage lights. They will affect your visibility. I actually had to stop right in the middle of a song during my last performance at Indie FurCon because the lighting they had in the room was so dark and the stage lights were so harsh on my eyes, I literally could not see my own guitar because the glare was too bright. So I had to have them bring the house lights up in the room just so I could play the rest of my set. Oh, and also, know your emergency exits! Number 3, prep and setup. Get there early. I can't stress this enough. The sooner you get to where you need to be and the sooner you can communicate with the staff directly that you're going to be working with, the better. Especially if you're going to be performing in suit, the last thing you want to be doing is running laps around a room trying to get everything set up. And speaking of running around, if you have to carry your own equipment, invest in some sort of dolly or something. I have a great one over here that I've been using over the last year, and I've been able to fit 2 guitars, a fursuit tote, my full-sized amp, and basically everything else I need for an entire convention in one place. No more using the hotel trolleys for me. And if you don't have any wheels to get your equipment where it needs to go, ask for a helper. Usually there's plenty of volunteers at a convention that'll be able to help you out. My first year I went to Anthrocon, I was about 5 or so blocks away from the main convention center, and at like 8 o'clock in the morning in 90-degree weather, I had to carry my full-size amplifier, a guitar case, while in suit. That was the main reason why I got the trolley. Never again will I put myself through that kind of crap. Also, I would suggest doing a sound check with your fursuit on. That way the audio guys can compensate if you can't be heard that well through your suit, or if you need to be hooked up with a wireless kit like I did, again, ask, it's not guaranteed. At least until sound check is done, then go ahead and take off your suit if you need to before showtime. There's no need to be in suit for the whole day leading up to the performance, especially when you have to worry about overheating and dehydration. And last but not least, practice. Basically, if you can do what you need to blindfolded, you're off to a good start. But in all seriousness, it really just comes down to how well you know what you're going to be doing. Do it in fursuit or costume until there's really no noticeable difference between you wearing it or not. One of the people that originally inspired me was a guy named Bucktown Tiger, and he actually performs in suit playing keyboard. And he is an amazing musician. If you have the chance to look him up, he does some amazing stuff. I had messaged him once just about this kind of thing before, and he basically said that you have to practice it while you're out of costume to the point where it's just about perfect, and then put your costume on and practice with it on. Basically, that's the only way you can really get a handle on what you're up against. And I guess a way to bookend that is just to say, if it feels clumsy in suit, it's gonna look clumsy. Alright, that about wraps it up for this video. If you liked any of the tips that I had, let me know. I also plan on maybe doing some other kind of like, you know, general music tip performing type stuff in the future, but who knows. Anyway, a big shout out to my first $20 tier patron on Patreon, Rufus Dexon. You rock, man. Thank you so much for supporting me. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for subscribing. It really means a lot to me. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out and rock on, fuzzbutts.